Hi, I've received lots of messages asking me what I do with all my gel prints. Well, my aim is always to pull a finished frame-worthy print from the gel plate. But as we all know, when you're experimenting, this isn't always possible. So I, like every other gel printer, has got a stack of papers to use for collage. So during this video, I'm going to show you how I have developed these gel prints that I created in a previous video, and I'll drop the link to that video in the description below, using collage techniques and machine stitch to create this finished mixed media piece of art. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel, drop me a comment below, and I will also place a link in the description below if you'd like to sign up to my newsletter to learn more information about in-person workshops and my new online course. Let's get started. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is I've got some gel prints that I did on a previous video. I'm not quite happy with them as a standalone print. So I'm going to look at creating a mixed media piece and collage and stitch into it. So I've got those prints that I did a few weeks back, and then what I've done is I've looked at those three colours, so the Payne's grey, the grey, the Wedgwood blue, and I've just picked out some papers in my mixed media box with textures that I've created that I may or may not use. I'll see how it goes. Lots of patterns there. So I have found some grey plain paper. It's just some wrapping paper that I might use. And like I say, I've just got a piece of just Payne's grey printed straight off the plate with nothing on. So it's just nice and plain. Okay, let's get playing. I've put a central line up the middle because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some inspiration from a Rex Ray piece that I've previously done before. So they're all going to be coming off a central line. So that's why I've put kind of a guideline there for me to start. So I'm going to begin by just cutting out some shapes from the gel prints that I have, and just start to kind of put some blocks of colour and pattern down off those central lines to try and make the background of the mixed media piece. So I'm not worrying too much about if they're particularly straight, because most of the edges are going to be covered either by a mount or the stitching when I machine stitch into them a little bit later. It is quite difficult at this point where you just kind of put in the composition of the piece together, because obviously the papers are moving around, they're not staying still. But I don't want to put any glue at this stage until I've got the balance and the composition of the piece how I'd like it. So what I'm doing is I'm working in threes. I'm trying to balance the colour and the textures, the pattern. So you can see there I've put another piece of the darker blue up in the top right hand corner. So I've got that 3 on my composition and to balance it. And now I'm looking at adding more pattern again to carry that colour down in 3s and the pattern to create that balance of the piece. Okay, once I'm happy with it, what I've done is I've got these shapes that I've cut out in white card that I can use as a template. So I'm just positioning them over my background to check that they're going to be in the right position, and I've got those background blocks in the right position that they're going to overlay. So what I'm doing now is using those pieces of white cardboard as a template and to cut the shape out of the different patterns and papers that I've chosen. And as you can see, I'm just repeating this process with the templates to create the different shapes, whether it's with patterned or plain papers. So with this one, I'm cutting the shape out of the pattern and I will use that on one side of the mixed media piece. But I actually like to use the negative shape as well and overlay that over plain pieces to add more interest to the composition as well. So again, here I've cut the shape out of the plain piece of paper, and again I'm using the shape, but I'm also using the negative shape as well, again to create balance and bring some of that darker area to the top of my artwork. So what I'm going to do now is, top tip is to take a photograph of your piece before you start deconstructing it like I'm doing here. And I'm just using a Pritt-Stick to add a small amount of glue. I'm not gluing these down properly. I want to use the minimal amount of glue as I can because I want to use the sewing machine, and I will capture all the edges with the thread. So I'm really not worried about how much glue. I'm just putting enough down to really just tack them in place so they're not shifting around as much while I stitch and finalise the composition. It's important to take a photograph of your piece before you start deconstructing it and gluing it down, because I guarantee once you lift those pieces of paper, you're never going to remember where you put them. So I'm working from a photograph off screen to check that I'm repositioning these papers in the right place. And as you can see, I keep putting a mount around my artwork. It's really important when you're creating a mixed media piece of artwork that you use a mount to frame your work, because you lose so much of artwork when it's framed. So it's important when you're looking at the composition to use that mount, and it really helps me to focus on the areas to make sure it's balanced. So here I'm just adding another print with some lighter texture. I feel it's all getting a bit samey and heavy, so I was looking to add a different paper in there just to lift it slightly. Again, at this point, I just felt it was all a little bit dull. I didn't want to add a bright colour as an accent because I wanted to keep to quite a strict colour palette for this one. So I just decided to add some double-sided tape, and I'm using metallic transfer foil just to add another kind of texture and dimension to the piece, just to try and lift it a little bit. Again, I like to work in odd numbers, so I'm trying to position it where the metallic is balanced through the piece, but also work in odd numbers. So I'm trying to put either 3 or 5 pieces on my piece. So the transfer foil sticks to any kind of gluey surface. So I'm using double-sided tape because I want to keep those kind of rigid lines. And then what you do is you lay the transfer foil down, so shiny side up, give it a rub, peel it off, and you've got that lovely metallic shimmer to your piece. So once I'm happy with the composition, I start to add machine stitching. So I've just got my machine set to a basic zigzag stitch. I'm working from the inside out, and I'm just following each line to add detail with the stitching. Once I've done all the horizontal stitching going to the outside, I'm doing one final long zigzag stitch all the way down the central piece. So you can see on this side there, what I'm doing now is just using tiniest bit of Pritt-Stick to add my shapes, leaf shapes in the middle. And then I'm going to run a zigzag stitch around the edge to outline each of those shapes. It's important you slow down on the corners because they can be a little bit tricky. And I'm not using a free embroidery foot this time. I've just got my standard stitch on there. So just taking it easy around those corners. And there you have it, the final finished mixed media piece with the machine stitching that enhances the collage detail. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think.